Welcome to this video. Action Plan for Existence. Agroforests and their deep soils play a central role in the above action plan for existence. They will become more and more biodiverse and carbon sequestering. Until today, the best and only examples of such agroforests are in the Amazon forest and were built by Amerins several hundreds and thousands of years ago. Still today, they present sustained soil fertility and extreme productivity. The sequestering of massive amounts of carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere is only one more of the many benefits these agroforests provide for existence. Horsemen also from the West. This video is about a group that we will call here the Yamnaya, as well as the horsemen that overturned Western Eurasia roughly 4,000 years ago and today represent the modern humans of Western Eurasia. The map that is shown shows the next title. HGRYDNA. This is Y-DNA haplogroup, R1A alpha. It is the first Yamnaya haplogroup to appear, so let's also call it Yamnaya alpha. From the standpoint of consensus today, and probably also from the standpoint of the groups living in Europe at the time the Yamnaya alpha were present, living and roaming in the East. This relative East, however, is still in Western Eurasia. This all is exactly what David Reich was and is talking about. The Yamnaya come out of the East. The Butai culture, with haplotype B003 and hosted in Kazakhstan, is a very good and very early example of groups coming out of the East. The Butai are descendants of the R1 that comes from the Americas. They could be the more early R1A alpha, and could come from over the Arctic still in the ice ages, or could be the most early R1B Bravo coming directly with help from the North Atlantic Gyre. The Butai culture will be presented in other videos of this series of action plan for existence. First from East and then from West, but always from the Americas. But these and especially the Western European Yamnaya don't only come out of the East, because in reality, Yamnaya B Bravo, or YHP, R1B Bravo, with Bravo being a reinforcement of the letter B, comes dominantly out of the West, differently than in the case of Yamnaya Alpha, the first one, probably dominantly coming from the East. Yamnaya B coming from the West. If Yamnaya B Bravo, or YHP, R1B Bravo did not come dominantly from the West, using the North Atlantic Gyre, then they were preparing to come from the West. Because otherwise there's not a lot of motivation for them to be in Iceland at that time, but they were, and still are, in Iceland etc., although in not such high frequencies. Or it could be that they were in a high frequency, but that they are overtaken by Yamnaya B Bravo, or YHP, R1B Bravo. Anyhow, the Yamnaya B Bravo, or YHP, R1B Bravo, the Yamnaya, the real one, arrived and dominated Western Europe. Well, for me, R1B is the real one. It's the latest mutation, it arrived latest, and it turned over in the most dramatic fashion of all times. It's the group with the mutation that invaded and took Europe as last. Since Western Europe supposedly, also, was taken by Yamnaya, I include Yamnaya B Bravo, or YHP, R1B Bravo in the group called Yamnaya by David Reich, and possibly soon consensus as well. What took Western Europe as last, based on facts, as ancient DNA research, certainly was not coming from the East, amongst others, because the root, R1, is in the West. R1A alpha is the same as Yamnaya A alpha. YHP, R1A alpha or Yamnaya A alpha, is the first group and earlier than YHP, R1B Bravo. For Europe you see the highest concentrations of YHP, R1A alpha, or Yamnaya A alpha, at the height of Poland and Germany and east of the higher parts of the Indus, west of Pakistan and Afghanistan. Roughly from India to Kazakhstan, it is the sub-haplogroup, YHP, R1AM17 AN, or R1AZ93 or Aryan. The first R1 did not arrive in Africa. And you see that the first R1A alpha doesn't arrive in Africa. That could become one more argument in favor of out of the Americas. Today supposed mitochondrial Eve mtDNA can be detected in modern humans like the Western Europeans, since they have their roots in the Americas unless the mitochondrial Eve mtDNA only could come from the same R1 root in from the Americas, and entered Africa from the Americas the way IJM described above. R1A alpha lands more or less on the Nile Delta, Red Sea, Canaan, or today Israel, but it's not in high frequency and doesn't touch Africa as the B beta, as the following, as the last one will do. The following, or the latest, which I call Yamnaya, because I look at it from the standpoint of Western Europe. In fact, the Yamnair is probably more a 1A alpha. The older one, that didn't have this mutation, M269. Anyhow, you see that B Bravo, the later one arrives in Africa. That is because the later one comes by boat, aided by the South Atlantic Gyre. And it will take on the west coast of Africa. So B beta and the last wave affects Africa. Africa all the way up to, let's say, the Nile Delta. This is another mapping or format of the Yamnair group of the R Romeo, haplogroup R Romeo. This time, in this map, the Americas are to the right, to the east, but for the rest it is the same YHP R Romeo map. It's interesting that the haplogroup is mentioned, or that annotations of the haplogroup are mentioned. This map has the R1 subhaplogroups, that are kind of mutations, evolutions, or hybridizations, marked with blue circles this one. They all come from the root, R1 Romeo. This is the root, and has no A alpha, or B Bravo, after the R Romeo. The root, R1 or R1 M173, the red square in the blue North America map, or the blue circle above North America, in the red world map with different, R Romeo haplogroups, departs from North America with the North Atlantic Gyre, arrives in Europe after passing Greenland and Iceland, and invades and turns over Western Europe in the Yamnair turnover event. On the world map one can also find R1b V88, but one should note that it is not equal to R1b M269. This time it's not YHP R1b M269, it's YHP R1b V88. So the different R1b V88 is probably not produced in North America, as almost all others are. It's most probably produced on the southeast coast of South America, or rather Brazil. I cannot guarantee, because there are still other producing units, or groups, places, in the Americas. Or it could be produced in North America anyway, and it mutated differently underway. But I think the most probable is that it came from South America, the south of Brazil, and that it arrived in Africa with the South Atlantic Gyre. So it's another haplogroup, with the highest concentration to the left to the word R1b V88, or at the height of the north of Nigeria. This retraction from the coast could be because let's say later other movements or arrivals made them R1b V88 retract further from the coast. Maybe this in-between situation is or what the Africa R1 haplogroups could accomplish in sub-Saharan Africa. Saying the same with other words, maybe the Africans, or present animals, before YHP R Romeo took back the coast after earlier retreating from it. And after all, they knew arriving Yamnair Bravo, R1b V88, could have had as main intention to approach or populate the Nile. The higher part of the Nile and the Nile Delta, Egypt. Repeating, to approach or populate the Nile from one more side, or direction, with the other side being parting from Eurasia, which is north and east from the Nile, for strategic reasons, or just as a kind of reconnaissance, or passing by that is not maintained or populated. So anyhow, this R1b V88 was another evolution, mutation, or hybridization that only can have come, or descended, from another origin, or wave. The Western European Yamnair came from here, JM pointing to North America, took the North Atlantic Gyre. But this one, or these ones, R1b V88, JM pointing to South America, most probably came directly from South America. So they are different than the ones that came from North America, whether directly through the North Atlantic Gyre, or indirectly over the Arctic with their herds. So this is the video for today. Thanks a lot for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more great content. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Bye.